Welcome back to Judge Jugs. It is I, the most honorable Mammarian magistrate, Dalton Pruitt, and this pair came across my desk recently. It looks like I'm looking at a couple of meaty banh mi's, some real big, soft, pillowy bao buns hanging, natural, hanging loose, all natural, belonging to a lady by the name of Lana Condor. And Condor is right because them birds is singing. I don't know who this lady is, but I clocked right away that them things is Vietnamese. I would suck the pho broth right out of them. But I had a Vietnam flashback of my own upon seeing these Vietnamese. Because when I didn't fight in Vietnam, obviously, because I'm too fat, but also I was not alive at the time. But when I was a child, I believe the first titty I'd ever seen in real life was Vietnamese. I was going to church at the time. My family would go to church every Sunday and every Wednesday night, Wednesday night Bible study. So we were going to church 2 days a week. And one of the members of our congregation was a Vietnamese lady by the name of Tan Binh, who they didn't have a word for this at the time. They didn't. This isn't what it was called, but her husband is what they call now a passport bro. He was a guy who had gotten too lonely and desperate here in the States, and then went to Vietnam and found a wife, and then brought her back to America, and then made her go to church at the same church that my family went to. And she was a real nice lady. Her husband was physically abusive, but Tom Ben herself was really nice. They invited us over for dinner all the time, and she'd cook us up big bowls of pho and make these scallion pancakes. But she got pregnant eventually, so she had a baby. And then one time we was at some church function, and she needed to breastfeed, and she's Vietnamese, so I guess they got different beliefs and social mores when it comes to titties over there. I'm not sure, but she just dumped one out right there, in the middle of the potluck, and started breastfeeding her kid. And I was maybe 11 or 12 years old. And so this is the first time since I myself sucked on some titties as a baby that I'm seeing a titty, a breast in real life. And that really had imprinted itself onto me. That was like a foundational moment for myself, because this is my first boobie that I'm ever seen, and it's exotic from the jungles of Vietnam. Imagine that somebody grew up in some shanty town in Vietnam in the wake of the Vietnam War, through all the destruction and terror brought forth by the United States Armed Forces. And then one of those same guys actually flies back over there and brings you to Fort Worth, Texas, where now a chubby 11-year-old boy is looking at your titty. It's the world in titties is really mystical things. When you think it's really like there's a spiritual binding that we all share through the titty, the mother's milk. All of us are nourished by titties in some way, whether it's the actual milk itself or just like me seeing that Vietnamese breast as a young boy and remembering forming that spiritual, emotional connection with it, so that when now I'm looking at this pair of Vietnamese breasts, that it brings forth all these memories to look at them things hanging right here, just takes me back to my youth, growing up in the church in Fort Worth and seeing that. And it's like the end of the when the food critic eats the ratatouille at the end of Ratatouille, and it pulls him back to being a kid. It's such a magnificent dish. That's how I'm feeling about these incredible, all natural Charlie's in the Trees right here. Is that they're taking me back to my youth, to this really special moment that will, set the stage for the rest of my life. Seeing one of my fellow members of my congregation at church who happened to be a Vietnamese woman dumping out one of her breasts. And much like her, these that I'm looking at here, the set pair slobber knockers belonging to Lana Condor here appear to be untouched by man's machinations. These is all natural, hanging bazongers, which I appreciate that, because I ain't got no qualms with pushing them up, getting them all gussied up, dolled up, swapping them out for big fake ones. I enjoy a titty as a titty, right? But there is something about just letting them things hang loose and flat that I can really vibe with. It is like a spiritual, earthly Mother Gaia. It takes us back to the earth, to the dirt in the earth from whence we all came. It reconnects us with that which is natural. And so all that's to say, 10 out of 10 wood motorboat.